It's a glorious gospel that we are called to proclaim. A gospel which has the power to transform men into the very image of Christ. The gospel itself is powerful, life-changing, glorious. But, alas, we who are called to proclaim it have this priceless treasure of the gospel in earthen vessels, in common clay pots. You have it in a clay pot, but it's a treasure nonetheless. What's this treasure? It's the gospel. It's the message of the gospel. It brings people to life. God empowers it with His Holy Spirit, and He breathes upon dry bones and they live. You have that treasure. God didn't choose angels, beings of great power and glory, to proclaim His truth. And why not? M&T Bank Stadium would fill up tonight, no doubt, if it were announced today that the angel Gabriel were going to speak there tonight. It would be full. And no doubt many of those people would respond to the gospel message that they heard from Gabriel. But when people responded to that preaching, it would not be at all clear if their response was to the message or to the messenger, to the glorious, majestic messenger. God has chosen, Paul said, the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty, and the base things of the world, and the things which are despised God has chosen, and things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are. Why? That no flesh should glory in His presence. In other words, that none of us would take pride in ourselves. So we Christians who carry this priceless treasure do not appear any different from the other clay pots, except perhaps that we tend to be weaker and baser and more despised, right? Because 1 Corinthians says those are the ones God has chosen. It's the poor that have the gospel preached to them. You're like a peasant sentenced to death for a crime that you committed, and you've been sovereignly pardoned by the king. You were pardoned not because you were innocent. You're in fact guilty. You were pardoned in spite of your guilt. And just before he opened the prison doors to release you, the king graciously bestowed upon you an inestimable treasure. And he told you, I want you to freely give this to all other poor people that you meet. Right? But he also told you the wonderful thing, the miraculous thing about the treasure is that as much as you give it away, it's inexhaustible. Your giving it away does not by any means diminish the amount of treasure you still have. Right? In fact, it increases. Imagine the disappointment and displeasure of the king should he call you into his presence years later and discover that you had not followed his instructions. You hadn't given the treasure away. Well, you tell him, well, I was afraid you thought some people just wouldn't take it, and others would never believe that you were truly rich, because after all, you're just a common clay pot. And others would deny that the treasure was real and would mock you for believing in it. You should have given it away as I asked and left the consequences in my hands, the king says. Christian, you have a treasure, the treasure of the gospel of Jesus Christ. But it wasn't intended to stop with you. It's meant to be shared. It's meant to be given. It's meant to be spread. Not kept in a safe deposit box. How are you going to answer when the king calls you to give account?